So now we are going to enter a panel discussion called The Role of NFT Artists and Curators, that is designed to almost answer that question in even more thorough detail. And so for that, I would like to invite Coco Dolle, Osher Frank, Massimo Dolle, and Gaia Riposati.
Hi, I'm Coco Dolle. I'm actually the instigator of that panel, the role of the curators and artists. We have Gaia, Massimo, and Osher. I just want to actually to tag along from what Boris was saying, which was actually quite very, very pointing to exactly what we're talking about. So what the role of the artists and the curators are actually, yes, to bring the qualitative and be like the new gatekeepers of the quality of the work that goes on Web3. We, of course, we're all artists here. We'll talk about that, right? We all come from like fine art background as architects or installation artists and performance art. Myself as a curator and a fine artist as well. So we're not interested in like flipping or speculating, NFTs. This is not why we entered the Web3. So it's very important to us to be actors that are with an intentional, a positive, impactful intention for Web3, other than a monetizing game, right? So just to go back to So I'm Coco Dolle. I'm an art curator and an NFT artist. I've been in New York for 20 years. I curate a variety of events in exhibition spaces in the fine art industry and also Web3. I have a big event on Thursday at Neue House called Portraits of Women in Web3. So my focus is mostly on underrepresented voices, which are women. Highlighting a woman in the spaces has been always my thing.
So I am Gaia Riposati, and I am a performer and an artist. I came from theater and as an actress, and I've always been interested in merge languages. So what I always did is to perform with the space and people and art. And is what we do as Nuvola project with Massimo, and we try to let even digital artworks perform. So Massimo.
Yes, in fact, we came from the physical world and the traditional art. As Gaia said, we were performer, actors, but we also started to create some digital installations, some interactive installation. In fact, we usually used to create connection between, we love to create connection between the real world and the digital world with our performances. And what we do is usually try to make people, interact with our artwork. And by the way, what I'm wearing here is not a t-shirt. Actually, this is an NFT. And it's more than this. This is a phygital art. In fact, these clouds is in sync with our NFT. Whenever you see a lightning, I hope that it will make something. It means that someone in this wonderful world has just sent a tweet with the hashtag climate changes. And as soon as this happens, this t-shirt and the NFT as well will make a lightning. And we have created this, that by far, I think that is probably one of the first social media real-time interactive NFTs and t-shirt. It's not because we wanted to make something that was technologically a wizardry, but because we wanted to let the audience feel the power of connection. Since this project that is called The Storm is about, climate changes, we wanted to let the people understand that whatever happens, no matter where you live, have an impact on all over the world. So the best way to do that was to create a kind of art that would have let all the owners feel in connection between them and also in connection with all the people that talk about this kind of issue. And this is just an example of what we do with Gaia. We'd love to create connection between the physical world and the digital world, and that's it.
What you see
Beautiful.
was the cloud that was connected, the digital cloud with the physical cloud. Thank you.
All right. So hi, My name is Osher Frank. I'm an architect, licensed since 2015. In 2021, I got a phone call from a blockchain startup named Mavenant in Toronto, and they said, look, I think you should join us here and start designing architecture on the metaverse. Ever since then, I've been creating a group of architects and a few software engineers, specifically with the Unreal Engine, helping brands to jump on the metaverse. Talking about phygital and digital assets and bridging between NFTs who are completely on the chain and things like the cloud that can actually affect real-life performances is something that I see as the cornerstone of the architecture of the metaverse.
I really like what you, so going back to the role of the artist in the NFT space, talking about connection, right? Well, we're talking about quality, right? Bringing the quality of the work. It's not just about creating a collectible, a smart, marketing, scheme on like creating 1,000 collectibles that are geared to generate income. We're talking about connection. We're talking about the work and the audience connecting with the work. So Web3 can be a new way of, that's what we're trying to figure out here, whether in architecture also, how to connect and to the audience. This is a new tool that we are all discovering. I mean, we're still learning about it. I mean, who says that? Who can be an expert, like, right? I mean, we've been, doing NFTs for like what, 5 years now, like the original gangsters, but we're still learning, and there's always this new technology is always evolving. So we're evolving with it. And what I find beautiful is a little bit more the poetical aspect of it, which I like to tap into as a curator and an artist. So the connection that the artist wants to create with with the audience and the work. How do you communicate? How do you create, because a digital screen is a screen, right? So screens are screens. We're invaded by screens. That's all we do all day long right now. Like no one has no screens, in their life. Even grandpas and grandmas have screens now. It's just like, so how do we go beyond, and how do we communicate something other than just a digital visual?
There's a lot of things that we can do. As a performer, I always experimented ways to meet people. And we think that we can do it with the new technologies in a perfect way. Even augmented reality is a way to make a bridge between the metaverse and the real life world. We have a project now with a great museum in Rome, and we are trying to let the artworks, the very important classical artworks of this museum, perform. And the people will see these pictures telling their stories in augmented reality. And we plan to have an sign interpreter to let people that can't hear understand what is saying. So it's even a way to break the wall.
Yes, in fact, this is again. We really love to create connection between these two worlds. We usually think to the digital world as referring as metaverse, but our digital life is much more than simple metaverse. You mean metaverse? Metaverse is a kind of digital representation of the space, right? But our lives is already digital since a long time before. A lot of our life actually is in the digital world, for instance, with social media or something like that. So it's important for us to try to create this connection. If we do a performance, we love to make this performance be exactly the same even in the digital world, and we love to take the digital artworks into the real world using again something like augmented reality or other kind of technology, because it's important for us to create this connection and let people understand that these two worlds are not so separate as we think they are. They are very connected, and what happens in the digital world has some impact even in the real world, and sometimes we forget this, right?
So I'll try to respond, from that point. Already we're seeing immersive shows like the Frida Kahlo show, immersive show, or the Rembrandt show, where they scanned their entire artworks, and these are people who lived 100 years ago, and now you get to experience the show in an exhibition where it's all being screened on the walls, right? So this is one immersive experience that I cannot define it as exclusively metaverse yet, but I believe that we are going there. Like the shows that we're going to see in about 20 years, they're going to be an immersive space that is an X reality, right? A mixed reality, where part of the digital assets that you're creating might be completely augmented reality, might be completely screened, or might be even a 3D, yes, completely like that. And that's really interesting. Now, taking it even deeper, a step even deeper, and having people, let's say this is being screened here at the moment in New York, right? But you can have people, you can have avatars from other countries visiting at the moment, right? So, and taking all of those topics back to NFTs, so the beauty of the blockchain, is that it's all related to the artist. I can click and see who is the creator behind the piece of fashion, behind the dance, behind the cloud, or the designer of the space. So I think that's the revolutionary aspect that we're looking at, other than the technology.
And how do you, so you create complex architectural designs on the metaverse for brands, right? And architectural firms, or yeah, or
right. So it's not always architects. Right now, I think our biggest project ongoing is for TCG Metaverse World, and this is a big project that these guys came and asked for a concert hall and an MMA boxing ring on their metaverse. It's a very specific metaverse. I wish I could show the stuff on the screen, but in any case, this is something that, when I'm coming to design something like this, you have to take in consideration how many avatars are going to be there. Is it like 1,000 or 5,000? And also, what is the physics of the worlds? Because you can actually bend the laws of physics, you can actually program your own metaverse and say, okay, I want to be looking at the stage now from 360 degrees. I want to have like an anti-gravity, and I want to have seats on the ceiling, for instance. So this is one aspect. Another brand was SailGP, for instance, and these guys are doing Formula One, but on the water. So their ships themselves are NFTs. They're digital assets that a collector can go and buy, or someone who's enthusiastic from the sports theme can say, okay, I like this asset. I'd like to buy it for myself. And from the real estate perspective, I think this is the most interesting. This is what you guys are doing. It's the digital twin. Because if a person who sits in Dubai now wants to see a potential, let's say, apartment that he wants to buy now in Miami, he doesn't have to travel. He can just go online, take an Oculus Quest, dive into his own apartment, future apartment, and say, okay, I like this one, I'm going to buy it.
direct experience.
That's a question, I think.
Virtual reality, do you see a time where the viewer will actually be able to dance with the ballerina or whatever it is? Is that on your plans?
Yes, this is a possibility. But also it's interesting to see not only forms of art that are conceived for the physical world simply translated into the digital world, but to create something that was built from scratch to be performed in
Yes.
both universe and not simply a recreation. What we are telling about, for instance, about the space. What I found very interesting is not a simple one-to-one reproduction of a physical, for instance, a physical museums. You know, during the pandemic moment, there were a lot of museums that create some virtual exhibition that were more or less, for me, a poor version of the experience that you can have when you enter in real museums. But if you start creating something that from scratch is built to let people have an augmented experience in the digital world, that makes a lot more sense. So when you are in front of a painting of, I don't know, Caravaggio or Mona Lisa, and simply see a digital version, static version, I think it's better than nothing, but it's not like being in front of the real world, the real painting. But if that paint makes something, for instance, tell a story or has some kind of augmented content, that makes a little bit more sense, and it's important to have people like you start thinking to this new world and to create something that was conceived from that.
In a word, I don't think it's important to have a replica in the metaverse of what we can do here, but we have to build something that is more than that and try to build and to imagine new languages, a new way to experiment the living in both, in our world that is not only physical world yet.
And to go back to performance art, just wanted to say I'm as a performance artist myself and a curator of performance art before the advent of like Web3. Performance art is not an easy. It's not very well monetized in the art world. It's very hard for performance artists to survive. It's a very hard practice. It's a long practice. It's years and years of hard work. Very little platforms, very little support. There are some grants, okay, museums, maybe it's like once in a lifetime. There's no real support. I was just earlier there today at another panel, Women in Web3, organized by Makers Place, earlier this morning, and they had a performance duo for at the event called Sarah, I'll let you know later. So the performances was happening, beautiful duo of two dancers, amazing. In a normal setting, you would see the performance and then clap your hands and then go away, right? And you're like, okay, thanks for the performance, right? In this setting, but the performance also has a component to it. It's like there's a digital, the digital print or digital limited edition, an NFT that is associated with a performance that you can actually buy online. Like I just got one with my phone. And this was quite amazing for me to be able to also think of like Web3 as new avenues of revenues for artists that are not just the generative artists. There's new ways of thinking and of working the space for all kinds of mediums out there, and this is wonderful.
I'm an immersive XR artist as well, but I don't do performance. I do physical and NFTs as well. One thing I've noticed, have you tried using Kinect motion tracking with your performances? Because that could very well be a way to have the audience interact. And I think a lot of the things you mentioned are already happening in the world, and I think that Aurora's Microsoft Kinect.
Yes, we worked even with people that use, full body suite that is even a little bit more complex than simple Kinect, and they do not us, but friends of ours that we work with him. He used to create, a live performance with a live dancer, and then there is a digital avatar that was performing in the metaverse in the exact moment. Interactive, and the interesting thing is that, of course, once the exhibition has finished in the real world, the virtual exhibition can continue, and you can replicate it, and you can have it, and even moved to other places and other times, so you can make it live longer than the simple physical exhibition. It's interesting as well.
Yes, even the fact that we can build things from our movement, from our performances, is not when my performance, that is not only dance, but I am acting and singing, stop, there's something that is not my performance, but is beginning to be an artwork, still exist. And this digital thing is interesting, as we do when we were performers before NFT, and we recorded our performances. Yes, but now we can build something that exists, and then we can invent, we can create with new languages and new views. We have, all of us, I think, not only us, experiment this new way to perform live.
So how does this all work together in the curation point of view, curators?
What was the question? How does it all work together?
With the curators. From the
As a curator?
curating one of their interactive dance performances, how would
On the blockchain or in general?
in general getting out to the public, is it, you know,
How do you curate? Is that the question?
how would you curate their performances just from an inside point of view?
How would I curate their performances or performance art in general?
Or just performance, interactive NFT performance?
Oh, well, interactive NFT performance. Well, again, like I was there earlier, so first there's a physical aspect of performance art. It's a body, right? I mean, you know, a digital artist and a generative artist is, you know, digital artist. They send a file, or they send an MP4, or whatever they send. Is it working? Am I out? No, no. Performance art starts with the body, so it starts with the physical being. So there's this component, and then, you know, then you apply it to the digital space, you know, with on the ledger with an NFT, either a limited edition, a still, or a performance, or it could be a clip of a video. But the way you curate it, creating is basically organizing a happening, organizing an environment, creating a theme, inviting an audience, finding a space, creating a momentum for a work of art to be highlighted. So if you're creating performance art, you have to consider a space, time, and the style of the performance. What is it? Is it music? Is it dance? Is it theater? There's so many kinds of performance art. And then I would say the best way to apply it to the blockchain is just like, you know, the traditional, I mean, the go-to place right now is to create limited editions of like stills, just like it happened this morning, and that would be the most efficient way to do it. But in order for performance art to be successful from a curatorial standpoint, yes, you need an audience. You need a physical audience, for sure. Or unless you want to, I haven't done that yet, like curate a performance art just on the metaverse and on the blockchain. I haven't done that. Maybe we can work on that together. You create a metaverse for me, and then I'll invite I don't know, avatars that are performance artists.
So, you know, that's a super interesting question and a super interesting topic, because right now I think what we're seeing mainly in the space is giant open markets that are not very, there is not a lot of differentiation, right? Like where in real life world, when you want to see an exhibition, then you are kind of picky. You're saying, okay, what am I looking for? You know, sports, fine arts, Rembrandt, or something that is more new age, or if it's dance, you know, there are many types of dances, right? So I think what we're going to see in the next coming years is differentiation of different markets that are designated for different fields of NFTs, right? If you're more into sports, you can find these on a specific market, and you'll know to go there. Same goes with the metaverse experience, right? Because there are many different metaverses at the moment. You know, you can go to Sandbox and you'll get one experience. You can go to Decentraland or Spatial and you get a completely different metaverse experience. And yeah, actually I wanted to take this, we have like less than 60 seconds, but I wanted to take this, if we can, to the place of how to build the relationship between the consumer and like the user and the creator, right? If there's a musician that you really like, you probably have more than one album. So the same will go with NFTs and with arts, if that kind of makes sense.
Any other questions? We have 10 seconds. 9, 8. Oh no, we have one more minute.
More.
I did see the
One
one.
minute.
Okay, we have 1 minute.
Yeah.
Another question?
If you are...
Sorry, we don't have any visuals to show you because we didn't know we were hello. We couldn't do it last minute. Too bad.
Yeah.
But
Anyone else want to
okay.
ask
they
anything?
didn't tell us of the email that we could have actually
So I
prepared a
think
presentation.
that you have to imagine how do you want to create this new way or live in art and culture. Because in fact, we are our culture. And this is a chance that we have that we can use it. We can imagine how we want to create relationships between us and culture and our way of living.
The very last message as artists in 5 seconds is, please, if you do something in real world and you need to move it to the digital world, don't make a simple replica. Use this wonderful technology to make something that is more meaningful in the digital version. That's it.
Coco, thank you.